All right. It's John Lennon's rock and roll. So, when the Beatles were recording stuff, a lot of times between recording their original songs, they would fool around by playing the stuff that was their favorite stuff when they were younger. The old rock and roll stuff that inspired them to become musicians. And, even the one time that John and Paul played together post Beatles, they didn't play Beatles songs, they played the old rock and roll songs. If you watch Get Back or Let It Be, in between their original stuff, they're fooling around a lot of times with old rock and roll stuff. So John recorded this album of his old childhood favorites. What was else going on in the world at the time is George Lucas had made American Graffiti, and the soundtrack was a pretty big hit. Had a bunch of old rock and roll stuff on it. And that in turn had inspired the series Happy Days, which was just starting to become popular when John made this record. And Sha Na Na had a variety show, and in which they would sing a lot of old rock and roll stuff. So that made him think, well, maybe I could do a record of my old favorites. And so here it is, John Lennon's rock and roll. Let's go through the tracks. So side one starts with Beep Bop Baloo, which is followed by Stand By Me, and then a medley of Ray-Tay, Rip It Up, and You Can't Catch Me, and Ain't That a Shame, and finally Do You Want to Dance, and Sweet Little 16. Yeah, I don't know these tunes that well. I must confess, I have only listened to this a few times in the decades that I've owned this, because I didn't like this that much. Yeah, I love everything but the Beatles, but not one Beatle wrote any of these songs. And it's not John Lennon the singer I like as much as I do him John Lennon the composer, especially when he sings his own stuff. Okay, so let's go to side two. So side two starts with Slipping and a Sliding, followed by Peggy Sue, Peggy Sue. And then a medley, Bring It On Home, Send Me Some Lovin', then Boney Maroney, Boney Maroney, and then Yeah Yeah, then Just Because. Now, I think part of the reason I don't like this, I don't even like this as much as the originals of these songs, and part of the reason is that on most of the songs I can't hear guitar at all. All I can hear is bass and sax and occasionally piano. You know, John Lennon's going to be playing rock and roll. I'm going to hear his rhythm guitar. He didn't even have to play lead if I can hear his rhythm guitar. Um, Somebody on YouTube has a video about how to play Beatles songs, and especially John's part of Beatles songs, and it really showed that a huge part of the Beatles sound was John's rhythm guitar, which is not noticeable when you're hearing the whole band at once, but when you hear it isolated, it's very noticeable. And it's very complex. John was a kick-ass guitar player, but he supposedly wasn't the lead, even though he actually did play lead on some stuff, and so did Paul. It wasn't all just George doing the lead. Anyway, I don't recommend this as much as any other Beatle thing there is. The few good songs are Beep Bop Baloo, Stand By Me, and Just Because. Other than that, it's very forgettable. It would have been better if Paul had collaborated with this. But between the two of them, and especially if they'd sung some harmony together like they did on "You Really Got a Hold on Me" and um, "Devil in Her Heart," I would have been better. But this is what he did. So